Hi everyone, my name is Elias. I am part of the executive committee in charge of this ECREA conference. I have the pleasure to introduce the three experts, and we will hear this blog of the pre-conference. The first one will be Leticia Rodríguez. Leticia is from the Universidad of Cádiz in Spain, and she will talk about how disinformation is transforming public relations industry, Black and Dark PR. So Leticia, it's all yours. We don't expect any all the experts. Will be participating in this blog. So you have 20-25 minutes. Okay.
Thank you first for the opportunity of share this time with all of you and give this conference. I appreciate. I am Leticia Rodríguez, professor in the Department of Marketing and Communication at the University of Cádiz. And today I will talk to you about how disinformation is transforming the public relation industry. I hope you enjoy it and you find it interesting. Let me know at the end of this presentation. Please, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. As you may already know, disinformation is a growing trend, but whenever we talk about this problem, we are always focused on fake news and not on who generates it. That's really important because it's relevant information that can help us to find ways to fight against this problem. In this new fight, or this new information fight, some institutions are doing relevant research, like the University of Oxford, which has an institute specializing in the study of computer propaganda. In their 2020 annual report, they note that during the year of under study, computer propaganda had been identified in 81 countries, and in 48 of them, they found professional corporations involvement. So in total, since 2009, Oxford has detected 65 companies participating in disinformation campaigns. They estimate that the investment could reach $60 million. So as you can see, it seems that disinformation moves a lot of money. This begs the question, what kind of companies are behind these jobs? Could public relations firms be taking part in disinformation work? So please, next slide. Thank you. Traditionally, public relations has been differentiated from propaganda, among other things because of its ethical essence. A review of the main ethical codes of the profession shows that most of them emphasize truth and honesty. So in this new era of disinformation and astroturfing, the International Organization of Communication Consultants stated its rejection through the Helsinki Manifesto, which details three fundamental principles about this. As you can see in the slide, principle 3 is about respect the truth and deal with honesty with colleagues and clients. Also, principle 6 is about never engage in practice such as astroturfing. And principle 8 is about also never be part or taking part in the creation or diffusion of fake news. In short, disinformation and public relations should never go hand in hand. So next slide, please. Thank you. However, also in recent years, some media have begun to use terms such as black PR or dark PR to refer to the professionalization of disinformation. But what are we talking about then? Are the media aware of the existence of agencies specialized in negative influence? Traditionally, public relations focus on working on the positive reputation of organization. And this information means that in addition to continuing with this practice, they have to deal with this information that seeks to affect their reputation. This implies three scenarios. The first one is that new companies are professionally assuming this information as a professional activity. The second is that ghost companies are created to hide the propagandistic. And the third one is that the traditional companies are forced to assume this information as another service due to the demand of their clients. In the later case, it is likely that they will hire other companies so that they cannot be associated with this activity. Next slide, please. Thank you for your help. On the other hand, professional disinformation work is a field little addresses in research, and most of the research is focused on journalists and social media or social networks. As an author, I initiated this line of research with the publication in 2019 of a paper studying the impact of disinformation in different organizations. To do so, I analyzed Maldita's verification for 3 months, and I conclude that institutions are the most affected organizations. After this, in my book, Digital Propaganda, Communication in Disinformation Times, I dedicate chapter 5 to different cases in which organizations have been the target of this type of disinformation campaign. Also in Spain, other authors have approached the study of the communication strategies developed by the companies in the food sector to manage emerging crises caused by the spread of disinformation. And there's another study about how disinformation is transforming crisis communication. Next slide. Well, this paper aims to investigate the terms Black PR and Dark PR to determine differences and similarities. We want to know whether it is a term used by the media or by academia, and to identify examples and related cases studies. Next slide. For this, I analyze the searches collected in Google and Google Scholar. We choose Google because it's the search engine most widely used in the world. Google normally offers 10 results per search. And in this case, we found 129 results for the term Black PR and 135 for Dark PR. The searches and collect of information were carried out between April 14 and 16. After this, the information collected was categorized based on the origins of the terms, definitions provided, techniques, and ensembles. Next slide. Well, as for the results, the first thing to note is the low presence of the term. In the case of Black PR, only 14% of the search results collected corresponding to our object of study. And in Google Scholar, only 5 results were found. In the case of Dark PR, the results increased slightly, as 23% of the search results in Google corresponding to our object of study. In the case of Google Scholar, only 11 were obtained. It is known that both terms are recent, and most results are obtained between 2018 and 2021. And 2020 is the year in which the highest number of contacts are collected. On the other hand, the oldest content corresponds to 2009 for Black PR and 2012 for Dark PR. Next slide, please. Well, for the meanings and examples collected, Black PR relates to the practice of public relations in a negative sense. The practice seems to have settled in the 1990s in Russia, but also countries such as Ukraine and Poland. It is also important to point out that in the USA, the term is used for African American professionals who have initiated a campaign to make their work more visible, although logically these results have not been taken into account for this work. Black PR seems to be a term closely linked to Russia, with synonyms such as the Russian practice. Most of the samples collected correspond to practice in the field of politics, and case studies are identified in different countries such as China, Taiwan, Philippines, Ukraine, and Puerto Rico. Next slide, please. Well, in the case of dark PR, few differences are observed, being practically synonymous. However, the cases are related to a greater extent with agencies, and some references indicate an increase in this company since 2011. It seems that the term is an evolution of black PR, which encompasses not only political communication, but also commercial communication. Setting out the samples as well as black PR would take a lecture of more than an hour because there are a lot of examples of this. But in summary, practice in different countries are also collected. Next slide. Well, finally, and by way of conclusions, few references are collected for both terms, which together do not represent more than 30% of their searches. Although both definitions refer to negative influence campaigns in which disinformation is used, black PR also includes previous practice. Black PR is related to the negative industry already established in Russia, while dark PR seems to be an evolution of the term, seeking to separate itself from other meanings such as African American professional, for example. Both terms are used more by the media than in scientific publications. There is little research in this field, so also this represents a good opportunity for us. Next slide, please. Although practice in different countries are reported, Russia seems to play a predominant role. On the other hand, although there are enough examples to observe that this information is professionally created, there are few recommendations or advice on how to deal with it. Finally, it is worth reflecting on what to do in the coming years, since an ethical practice could be transforming the public relations sectors. Perhaps, and only perhaps, establishing the stricter ethical criteria and a registry of external organizations operating in each country could contribute in a positive way. However, public relations must distance itself from this information so as not to affect the reputation of its own sector. Final slide. And that's all for today. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and attention. And that's my
Don't worry, Leticia. Don't worry. You have been rushing. Everything was or adjusted with the timeline that we have in this blog. Next, we will have the chance to hear to Marta Sánchez-Esparza, now as expert, now as one of the members of the executive committee of this pre-conference. Right now, Marta, it's all yours. You have 20-25 minutes, and she will talk about political actors and promotion of disinformation content in Spain, Twitter case.
Thank you. I'm Marta Sánchez-Esparza. I'm from Rey Juan Carlos University, and I have done this presentation with Adoracion Merino from International University of La Rioja. We have focused in the behavior of the main political parties and leaders, and especially in the independent and nationalist parties, which leaders and followers are more interested in promote messages against the Spanish government and issues like Spanish values or minorities as immigrants, etc. Please, the next slide. We hope these ideas will be interesting for you. And after our conclusions, we will be in disposition to answer the question that you have. First of all, according to in this presentation, we are going to define the concept of polarization and dissemination of hate speech. After that, I will explain the methodology and to show you the main results and conclusions. Please, the next slide. First of all, I will define, according to Weisbord, the concept of polarization, that is the combination of political and communicational phenomena where rhetoric based on the use of expression of hate contributes to the proliferation of a climate of prejudice and intolerance in contemporary societies. Another authors like Thompson have considered that language itself is part of the background conflict, placing public rhetoric at the heart of the causal link of the problem, affirming that the crisis of our politics is a crisis of political language, something that promotes a disinformation culture based on an ecosystem of production, propagation, and consumption of false, inaccurate, or misleading information that is for profit or that seek to cause public harm. This is a definition that has done the European Commission recently. In this culture, Twitter is the protagonist in disseminating populist communication with message focused on increasing the leader's popularity through disinformation content. Next slide, please. Well, respect to the methodology, the study aims to determine the level of polarization and promotion of hate content and news through message published by users associated with political parties, leader, and spokesperson related with nationalist and independentist political groups with representation in the Congress of Deputies in Spain through Twitter. The work is based in two projects. The project Spain's Fund and Form of Political Digital Disinformation Project, donated with the International University of La Rioja's support between 2019 and 2020, and the reflection generated from the project Taxonomy, Presence and Intensity of Hate Speech in Digital Environments, linked to Spanish professional news media, Hatemedia, funded by the State Research Agency, Ministry of Science and Innovation. In this work, we analyze 13,268 tweets on Twitter collected between September 2019 and February 2020, which suppose 6 calendar months. 2 electoral processes marked that period between the process address in April and the address in November 2019. Which influenced in the discussion in the Spanish political sector among the nationalist and independentist political groups. The selection of the case has been made based on the political profile exposed by authors such as Pérez Nieva, Sambonet, Corujo, Fernández, Esquer, and Rama, Carratalá, and Palau Sampaio. After that, we have done co-occurrence analysis, where we have cross-message published by the politician with the disinformation content identified by fact-checking journalistic project in Spain, the most famous, Maldita and Neutral, between August 16, 2019 and March 15, 2020. The amount of this message was very big, 2,730 disinformation content were analyzed. It allows us to classify 5 discrete groups: deficient, low, medium, high, and very high, talking about the core occurrence. We refer to the percentage of coincidence between the issues used by political actors in Twitter and the fake news and false arguments denounced by fact-checkers in this period. Please, the next slide. Respect the main results. In general terms, we have applied LDA model, and this has allowed us to see how the different topics addressed by them are concentrated in an average of only 5 or 6 topics. In the case of users linked to groups with a pro-independence political profile, like Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya and Junts pel Cat, the communication strategies used focus on establish a legitimacy of their political cause, the independence from Spain, from the criticism of judicial decision against leaders of the Catalan independence process, and from an attempt to associate the trial of these actors as non-democratic measures. They are also seeking to consolidate the need to activate a negotiation table that legitimizes their independence interests. And in the other way, the communication strategies used for the groups with a pro-independence political profile is based in seek solidarity mechanism with other political groups, like Bildu, and related uses by establishing comparisons of apparently similar events. Regarding the nationalist political groups, it allows us to see how the political groups such Coalición Canaria and Compromís are the ones that focus their message the most on addressing issues associated with problems of national interest in Spain. All the groups use Twitter as a space to legitimize their political project and try to find potential alliance with other national politicians like PSOE to form government and promote regional interests. In the case of Coalición Canaria and Compromís, they are the ones that most use messages that are not electoral or aggressive with other groups. Except Coalición Canaria, the rest of the nationalist political groups use this type of space for confrontation and differentiation with political groups and direct competitors within the autonomous community where they have a presence. Please, the next slide. We can see in this table the level of co-occurrence, the percentage of message published by analyzed actors according to the level of co-occurrence with disinformation content that have studied the fact-checkers Maldita and Neutral. Therefore, the identification of these terms helps determine the type of message with a high or very high level of co-occurrence in each political group, taking into account the discursive centrality sound so far. Regarding the number and percentage of message with the presence of some hate language against migration, insults, xenophobia, and misogyny, we are going to see the next slide, please. We can see that the 72% of the message associated with expression of hate identified are concentrated in two political groups, Bildu and Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya. 9 out of 10 expressions of hate identified are directed towards immigration or insults. Only 3% of the message published and analyzed at the level of political groups are associated with expression of hate. The political groups that have a higher percentage of message associated with expression of hate are BNG, Esquerra Republicana and Junts pel Cat, and the pro-independence political groups in general have 70% more use of this type of expressions compared to what is observed in the nationalist political groups. At the level of regional political groups with a nationalist profile, PNV leads with a higher percentage of this type of language, 62% of all the message. Junts pel Cat, that is regional political group in Catalonia, are the only ones where hate speech is detected in retweets. Please, the next slide. The network analysis carried out shows us how the 7 political groups can be grouped around 2 communities around the types of expressions considered in this work. First, a community that concentrates 82% of the interactions, where it can be seen how most of the political groups are closer to the use of terms toward immigration. That is the case of BNG, PNV, Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya. They are the most relative to this type of terms. After that, a smaller community that represent the 18% made up of Bildu, that are nationalist group, who is close to terms against immigration and greater use of expression of insult and misogyny. The data shows us how there are groups closer to other communities to which they belong or are associated, such as the case of Junts in the case of xenophobic expression and Coalición Canaria, and its more excellent proximity to expression related to misogyny and than the rest of the political groups analyzed. Please, the next slide. We are arriving to the conclusions where we have finally determined that, thanks to the data, that there is a communicative scenario where confrontation and polarization are used in their communication strategy, digital scenarios. That is the Twitter case. In the case of pro-independence political groups, conflict and polarization almost exclusively against other national political groups, for example, PSOE or Partido Popular, and state institutions. While in the case of nationalist political groups, more diversely when confronting and differentiating themselves from others to mark affinities with their potential voters in the terms exposed. The scenario described will take place from a communicative context with a low level of co-occurrence regarding the misinformation content identified in the fact-checking projects taken as study cases. In the case of pro-independence political groups, higher level of co-occurrence are observed concerning nationalist political groups around issues of national interest, but with a clear association with the sphere of political action exercised by them at the regional level. In the level of use of hate speech, the data shows us a scenario of low use of this type of expression in general. Please, the next slide. However, clear groups tend to use a higher percentage of this, as is the case of independence groups and one of the nationalist groups studies. The presence of these expressions will be focused almost exclusively on the use of terms associated with immigration in the most of the political groups that we have studied. This seems to show a process of normalization of this type of expression within the Spanish political debate, with a more significant presence of message associated with this expression with a neutral semantic load. This is a big problem, which could potentially be favoring a climate of prejudice and intolerance within Spanish society. The communication strategy based on confrontation and polarization is used as a resource to attract voters. Semantic load associated with the message with this type of expressions shows the normalization of terms that could help establish prejudice towards specific social groups like immigrants or others. The public profile of these actors would help to favor social conflict and the emergence of anti-democratic intolerance within public opinion, where the co-occurrence takes place in a low way. This is all the ideas that we have included in this study. Thank you for the attention, and I stay here for the questions that will be necessary.
Thank you very much, Marta. that will be part in this pre-conference is Tamara Antona. Tamara Antona is from the Universidad Complutense of Madrid. She's part of the Hatemedia project, and she will talk about new media, about hate speech taxonomy in Spanish, professional new media. She will talk about she will help us to know more about this important project, and we are handled right now expectation around it. Okay, so Tamara, it's a pleasure to see you, and all yours, 20-25 minutes.
Thank you, Elias. I'm very glad to be here. As he says, I am Tamara Antona from Complutense University of Spain. I will put the chronometer to don't stand too much. I came here to present a communication about hate speech taxonomy in Spain, about professional news media. I am not the only author. The author of this communication are Elias as well, and Julio Montero Diaz. So, freedom of speech in democratic societies is a key pillar in guaranteeing and protecting civil and political rights. However, the overwhelming presence and intensity of information in digital setting, as well as its prominence, especially on social network, does not necessarily encourage democratic principles and debate. Indeed, it can provoke the opposite effect, as the anonymity and immediacy of a lot of content, as it's fake news, emotional approaches, introduce as well elements that hinder forms of debate based on analysis of the issues. All of this leads to liquid modernity, where the growing proliferation of content hinder coexistence based on democratic values because of the dissemination of hateful messages or those that foster intolerance and incite directly at certain easily identifiable groups, migrants, community like with lesbian or homosexuality groups, and certain religious movement. An analysis of creation, dissemination, and exchange of content in digital setting has to take the following into account. First, the desire of connecting with specific and close approaches to understand the world, despite the apparent diversity of the available sources. This is a bubble filter effect caused by digital setting, the paradoxical risk of overabundance of information that actually limits of our vision of nearby social contents. In addition, the echo chamber effect of social network, which amplifies ideas and beliefs through the constant repetition of messages. And thirdly, the growing of role of institutional actors in digital environments, building on solid links between them and citizens. This one-way message conditions public opinion towards adopting position for against issues or encourage the dysfunctional use of the digital ecosystem. All this puts pressure on the formation of public opinion. In addition, variation of the cycles of dissemination of news events are not limited to mainstream professional media, but are expanded by other media in social digital environments, for example, in Twitter. The current digital ecosystem has been the most influential communication strategies become varied among a greater number of citizens because the number of the users. The wave of messages that appeal the most and disseminate personal beliefs and undermine objective of truthful facts relating to certain topics. This done to attract a greater number of audience in the various digital communication. This communication is a preliminary result of a border study that aims to comprehensively understand the dissemination of hate speech in digital environments associated with the mainstream in digital media in Spain. And this study aspires to achieve this objective by developing an online tool that detects and monitors this type of message in a digital environment. The achievement of the following specific objectives, it makes necessary detect and monitor this type of message in the digital environment associations. So I mean, one of our objectives are to identify the terms of denoting its level of intensity of hate speech with the message analyzed, and to establish a predictive model with this tool that has the best algorithm performance when identify hate speech in Spain, based on the intensity of saved messages and the sources from which the analyzed messages were extracted. At the end of the communication, we will see a small demo if we have any time to show how it's developed this algorithm in a short video. The project focus is to analyze on the institutional portals and user of social network associated with 5 of the main professional digital news media in Spain: El País Online, El Mundo Online, 20 Minutos Online, El Diario, and Antena 3 Online. The study analyzed the message published by professional digital news media being considered on the institutional portals and on Twitter. Twitter has been selected as the social network considered in this work, given that, in the next slide, please, it is the social network in which the influence of micro-narratives has grown the most. In addition, its users tend to prefer breaking news and monitoring current affairs. And it is the main social network for political stakeholders in terms of contact with citizens, especially during electoral process. This power is growing both with regard to disseminate content generated by the media themselves and for the exercise of journalistic work through immediate contact. Compared on social networks, for example, with Facebook, its users participate more actively. Its network that inspired the greatest trust in those responsible for the Spanish media for accessing reliable data in digital settings. Facebook or Instagram inspired the last in this group, and it is one of the social networks with the largest percentage of user linked to traditional and digital media in Europe. The analysis applied in this work will be carried out on the following content elements. I think it's the next slide, please. Headlines and titles of the published messages associated with news published by these stakeholders, and comments posted by them in reaction to messages posted by other users on their institutional portals and Twitter. With regard to the user who interact with the message published by the digital mainstream media, message and reactions, post in response to be content and message published by the news media, both on their institutional portals among the users who have them on Twitter. To address the research objectives, there have been collected data directly extracted from users associated with professional digital news media for 12 continuous months. And this collection was carried out daily using servers throughout the link of the academic Twitter API, following ECREA's direct message methodology. As large part of the data will be organized from Twitter. It was an extractor, for example, text and images. Such pre-processing were the first carried out to normalize the content link to each tweet collect. Next slide, please. And the next one. One more, please. Thank you. After collecting data, perfect. The next one more. After standardizing the messages collected both of the institutional portals on Twitter, they will be classified according to the presence or absence of hate speech in them. Those that do not contain this expression will be labeled as message without hate, and will also be used to develop the different analyses required to achieve the objectives to set out in this project. With those that contains hate speech, the expressions found will be classified on a scale of 6 categories. Another new element that will arise from this project will be the develop in depth in the following section. This scale is approximately, and the final version will be defined during the project to classify the types of hate speech, promote from the identification of expressions that reveal problems for tolerance, public spirit, and respect for civil war and human rights, without unnecessarily constricting a criminal offense. The next, please. In order to label the construction library, it makes it possible to meet the objective. The project will follow the methodology of Basile author. The method where was 3 team project members performing a manual tagging for a subsample of preprocessed message and to take the lead road. The third party will resolve the cases in which there is no agreement in the initial labeling. The preprocessing by the members of this committee were based on the content analysis of the message that make this subexample. The labeling of the messages will hate speech were done using these 5 categories indicated. Intensity 0, where a term where message that have terms is used that could objective define a trait of a group and is not used to a derogatory sense, but socially has negative connotation. Intensity 1, level 1, no verbal violence, but a factual presentation of an event to stigmatize a particular social group in order to stigmatize a particular social group. Level 2 with attributions of bad intention, abusive expression, taking advantage of the disproportion of forces, resources between the offender and the offended. There are not insults, but clearly negative actions were attributed to one of the removed person. Intensity 3, in the next slide, please. Scope of mere verbal violence. This includes all messages intended to insult, offend, belittle, or humiliate a person because of they belongs to a group that sender hates. A little clue to this level is name calling, but this is not exclusive. The message try to humiliate the other. Intensity 4, implied on threats, expression of positive emotion in the face of death, for example, aggression or physical harm to someone or something. Also intimidating expression with consequences, real or not, that are not of a physical nature cause. Physical, harassing expression, relentlessly pursuing a person without giving a person any respite, something like that. And in level 5, expression that call for action, will physical violence, sexual assault, threat of beating in the street, for example, against someone or something linked to them. Expressions, these kind of expressions are normally a criminal. Are we considered criminal actions by the law? So some of the first results that the presence of hate in these messages analyzed in the first sample, around 119 messages, is less than 1%, as it can be shown in the following in this graphic. This is a large enough sample to infer that in general terms hate speech in media presence is around 1%. It's not too much, but this is not a very representative present, but it is necessary to analyze how it behaves, in what type of content it is more present, what type of hates we are talking about, and in what intensity in order to address whether it's in a social problem. So according to the data collect, most of in the next slide, most of the label hate messages are intensity 3, as you can see in the graphic, in this graphic. That is messages that aim to insult, offend, belittle, or humiliate, as I have said before. Some of the insults have a meaning that makes them, in the vast majority in cases, function in a state way to insult one or more individuals for their mere belonging to a group. Feminazi, sudaca, as kind of examples in Spanish. Generally speaking, they are messages that seek to offend another who is in a different group of sender. On the other hand, intensity 4 and 5, especially 5, can be, as I said, criminal offenses, and they are therefore often removed for the media. So it's normal that is very, very, very low presence. Moreover, in we look at where hate content is published, the main presence is in the comments. In the next slide, please. Not in the news or in the highlights. That's very. It's the next one. I bet. Yes, comments. No, sorry, the present. There are a little of record before I speak and I can see the screen. Sorry, perfect there. Moreover, if we talk at where the hate content is published, the main presence in the comments in all of the levels, but moreover in the level 3. Once we have defined this hate of levels and the level of hate, we are going to analyze that which is directed to a group or an individual because of his or her membership, real or not, of what group. The best way to establish a typologies is to differentiate the groups towards the typologies to the different groups toward which is hated is direct. So as these groups can be very numerous, we have grouped them according to the traits that focus his hate. Usually traits are focus is hatred, usually by establishing the difference that make the members of this group haters, the other, such as religion, gender, sexual orientation, ideology, of this kind of groups. It's all be born in main that as the objective of the study is real samples. They will often contains hateful traits. It often contains as well different kinds of hates, not only one, but we have to choose one of the prevalence of them. It's the next slide, I guess. Yes, the type of hated detected is mostly ideological and hated categories as other, which does not fit any of the labels described. So, however, the predominant trend is the impossibility of categorizing an univocal way, and most of the messages analyzed it at least fall into two or more. There are not a prevalence, so are so strongful in both or three of them that are impossible to achieve on only one level. So if we look at the place of publication, once again, the next graphic, please. The preferred place of publication is in comments, but very far. After a first perspective analysis, we can infer that the preferred place of hate speech is in user comments, and is good news, as it means that in general terms, the instrument of hated form of the media is very residual, which demonstrates a correct democratic functioning, and hate speech detect in news stories and headlines is very, very low. If we talk the total number of expression of hate, without specific the type of intensity, the data are also so positive result. Hate speech still does not represent the 1% of the comments, news and headlines analyzed, which suggests that although it is present and sometimes has too much media impact, it is not a majority phenomenon. However, a more extensive analysis over time is needed to determine the extent of to which is a phenomenon of hate speech. Now I'd like to share with you the little video of hate speech monitor. I'm not sure how can I do it, so I will send to here. Perhaps Elias, can you share the screen with this video? But I guess it doesn't work with the slides, but it's incastrated as well, as you wish. And that's all for our presentation, and I will stay here as Marta and Leticia to respond any question. I fit the 20 minutes that so.
Thank you, Tamara. As you could see, we are working in this project for trying to contribute to the debates about hate speech and to identify and monitoring this kind of expression through websites and social media users related to news media. Right now, we will open the debates, the question, and we will invite Dr. Marta and Leticia about this period of the blog that we are handling this pre-conference. I have a few questions. Obviously, I know more. I know a lot about your talks, especially to know all three about how to avoid and fight against this kind of companies and promote disinformation and hate speech. How we can, which kind of recommendation do you think about it, especially in the context and as we can see all the time, all day long, we are drinking too many disinformation content through websites and social media, and especially I will put in focus on the role of journalism and news media about the for fight against this kind of expression and content, which is the role of this kind of media agent, journalism, and the states, the public institutions. What's your opinion about it, and how to avoid it or combat or fight against this kind of company also? I don't know. It's free to decide.
I think I am journalist first of researcher and teacher, and I have been working with this kind of information of news, and I am very happy to hear the presentation of Tamara and Elias and about the hate speech in the media, because the issue, the conclusions that you have shown about the role of the media, the role of the journalist is clear, because the most the worst hate speeches in the comments, not in the information, not in the news. I think there is the ontology or ethics in the in the speech of the media, in the main speech of the media, and only the reactions must to be moderated for professionals too. But I think the role of the professionals is clear in this sense. The journalism increases now. Many people is questioning the role of the journalism in the society because they are not so important that they were. Now we have platforms, or we have social media, and we have the news across or through all these sources, and the journalism is in crisis. Which is the role of journalism? And I think things like the paper or the presentation about the hate speech in the media shows the journalism has a clear role to moderate the hate speech, because in the news, in the professional news, there are a few, or it's very little the load of hate speech, and only in the comments. And the comments may be moderated by the professionals too. It's my opinion, my point.
Tamara.
Well, I totally agree with Marta. Professionals have a very, very important are a very, very important element in this in the equation to don't spread the hate speech from the media. But I think as well it is very important the education of the public, the person that will read a new can by himself determine if it's a real or not a real news because of the source, for example. And this is not only in the media as general term, as a media company. There are a lot of booths that operate in social media as Twitter or Facebook that spread very in offensive terms or for hide wishes, very fake news, a lot of fake news that directly attack the democratic state. And the only way to fight against that is that the public doesn't believe in this kind of information or in this kind of fiction hide behind the appearance of a news. They have to be able to determine it is real or not. This is a real news or it is not a real news. And this I think this is a very important step that we are not talking about from the faculties, perhaps in the first instance.
Well, just in public relations,
yes,
solution. Because we live in a global market, so maybe in your country you can create a regulation or a ethical code, and then find that there are foreign companies working in your country and doing this in a professional way. So it's so difficult. And also we have other problem that is influencers are working doing whatever they want. So the same scenario, they can work in a country, but all these video, these posts and blogs have a global impact. So at the end, there's not only one solution. We have to find a lot of different solutions and try to do a mix with all of them.
Yeah, but I have a second and another promise that we end after this, because for example, I'm completely agree about all your point of views expressed right now, but as we could see from different speech, speeches here during this, like the astroturfing from Sergio. Right now we are receiving and eating and drinking different kind of content promoted by companies, as you mentioned, that they are not in Spain, for example, with the local rules against disinformation and hate speech, but in a global context. So, in the case of Marta, when she was talking about the role of politicians, what's your opinion about if we want to close this block of the pre-conference with three actions and by priority and you consider and should be taken into account for fight against hate speech and disinformation content? Is the first challenge that I'm giving to you, all three. And the second is to give us some ideas about the role and the statement related with fact checkers, for example. Because fact checkers are uh, contributing and helping to recognize disinformation content, but not too much about hate speech in my point of view. Okay, so the role of fact checkers in this complex scenario, showing your speech, and the role of politicians, for example, and the three actions, the main actions that you consider all three, or your uh, three, Leticia, Tamara, and Marta consider and we should take it into account in this moment. In this complex scenario, I know that it's complex, but I want that you swimming into the debate. Okay.
In my case, the presentation was about the speech of politics parties, no, the nationalist and pro-independence parties. And I think we are talking about different things. One thing is the speech that disseminate the political parties or the leaders or the spokesman or spokesmen from the political parties that are a lot of times the most important responsible of the dissemination of hate speech, not the media, but the politicians. And I think the fact checkers that Elias is talking about, the fact checkers now are putting colors or sanctioning the false of the arguments or the true, but they can have another role that is to advise about the hate that is inside the speech of the politicians. I think the polarization of the political class is very dangerous for the democratic society and is not in the focus a lot of times of the fact checkers. The fact checkers in many times are talking about rumors, or for example, Maldita is a lot of times publishing message about the don't use this kind of food or this kind of beer or this. It's interesting, but we have the political class speaking against the immigrants or against and this is very dangerous for the democratic speech, for the democratic community. And I think the role of the fact checkers must to be enrichment with this function. It's my opinion.
Leticia, your turn.
But personally, I don't believe in fact checkers, sorry, because I think they are like a shadow of what is journalist or what is not journalist. And And also, I think they don't have a social or relevant impact. Most people don't know who is Maldita, or if they know who is it, they don't go to Maldita web to check what is truth or what is false. So I only find two two ideas. Okay, education, like our mate said before, is the only way, but not only education about what is in a digital way. I think we have to reinforce, for example, things like history knowledge, because our students don't know what's happening in our story. So if they don't know what's happening in Italy with the fascism, sorry, or in Spain with Franco, you can explain today what is, for example, I'm sorry for being so honest, what is Vox? You can explain this. So we need to reinforce education, but in a digital way, but also in a historical way. And we think we have to rethink about institutional media, Televisión Española, its website, and try to create also an educational tool in this area. That because in Spain, Televisión Española is like the tool of the political party in the government, but it should not be like this. We can use this tool to explain to people what is propaganda, reinforce the idea of a good journalist. Well, it's only a mix and idea.
Okay, no, but are few ideas, and I think that point out the point about the thing. Tamara.
Sorry. I will castle in educational, as Leticia says, not only in identify which is real or not. That's I think it's very, very necessary to our society, construct critical judgment, and it only can be made with a deep knowledge about our history, a little bit in philosophy, are very important, very main subjects that are being relegated in the educational system traditionally here in Spain, but not only in Spain, in general, no, are very necessary to teach about robotic complements and informatic skills, but it is very important to teach to thinking, to think about and to question ourselves that that thing that I read it's real or not. A fast check, it could be an option, for example, in I guess in places like Instagram or something like that. For example, I read weeks before there are in debate to put an advertisement in some kind of photographs that advise to the teenagers that this kind of photo are with Photoshop made trade. So they're advertise this kind of this public that it is not real. They don't construct an ideological form of women or males, and be the real, and they think in the real, in general terms, that body it could be very in very ways, not only in a normative, in just in a normative way, but it could be a good option in some news about, for example, science. There are a lot of a growing thinking about science is very are today say one thing and the other day they discover another completely different. But this remains that this kind of conversation of science is not good. The people can't understand how the science going on. So it is very necessary to people understand how the science are made, or how different discussions about the past are sometimes be different as the real past. It's that I I think.
I would like to say in the point that has said Leticia, that the history is the first victim of the political polarization, and we are trying to learn or to study or to explain the history to the students, or but we have a political class that is using the history to their interest, and in a fight very that don't respect the truth of the history, and then we have a big problem with this.
Well, thank you very much, Tamara, Marta, Leticia, for sharing your thoughts, information, and now we are clear that we have a lot of work to do. Institution media, the traditional ones, society, politicians, and other actors have to work each other together for fighting against the promotion of intolerance ambience and to straight the democracy system in our society. Thank you very much. I think that we will have a lot of space, new ones for debate about the theme. And only again, thanks for being part of this pre-conference.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank